I'm Enrique LaToise, your 3-Minute Lawyer. This is part 2. Still here with Adam Kraut, our guest, Executive Director of the Second Amendment Foundation. As I said in part 1, it's not legal advice, and when you're dealing with firearms and things of that nature, consult your attorney before making any decision. So just to clarify from part 1, if in Pennsylvania you're convicted of a misdemeanor in the first degree, felony in the third, felony in the second, and felony in the first, you basically forfeited your right to own a firearm in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yes, that's correct.
That's wild. Okay, and now I want to ask you, there's carry permits for people who want to carry a concealed firearm versus open carry. This is an open carry state in Pennsylvania, am I correct on that?
Yes, there's a lot more to it, but generally speaking, yes.
Generally speaking, someone can walk around like John Wayne from a Western movie?
You can, but there are state transportation laws preclude you from, say, throwing the firearm in your trunk, driving to your destination, taking it out, putting it on, because there's certain places you can only go to and from without a carry permit. So the moral of the story is go get a carry permit.
Get a carry permit. Or if you're going to do like John Wayne, you got to walk everywhere.
Yes.
Is that accurate? You can't get inside your vehicle because then that would be a crime. So if a person is looking for a carry permit, are there different rules and different laws, a carry permit versus just somebody that can own a firearm?
Yeah, so the criteria for getting a license to carry firearms versus buying one is slightly different. There are some extra things that if you've been convicted of that would preclude you from a carry permit, but might not necessarily preclude you from being able to purchase a firearm. So for instance, if you're convicted of possession of marijuana, specifically under the Controlled Device Substance Cosmetic Act here in Pennsylvania, that specifically precludes you from a carry permit, but may not inhibit your ability to buy and possess firearms and ammunition.
So if someone's been convicted of carrying marijuana or possessing marijuana at some point, they're not going to be able to get a carry permit unless they get a pardon or get it expunged off their record. Okay, now let's talk about another subject here. How can someone obtain a gun in Pennsylvania? Now, I know there are 2 types of guns here. We have handguns, which are basically short barrel, and we have long guns, which are basically the common AR-15 or rifle or shotgun. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so if a person in Pennsylvania wants to buy or obtain a long gun, what are the rules in reference to that?
So long guns are treated differently than handguns. Here in Pennsylvania, you can buy a long gun from a licensed dealer, so an FFL, or you can do a face-to-face sale, or if somebody wants to give you one, they can go ahead and do that. Those don't need to go through a background check, provided you believe the person you're transferring it to is not prohibited. So I could meet you out back here in the parking lot and sell you a shotgun out of the back of my truck.
Or an AR-15?
Or anything that's a long gun, and as long as I don't believe you're prohibited, perfectly lawful.
Okay. Is this what they call the gun show loophole? Or
yeah, it's freely alienating your property as the law says you can.
So with a long gun, a person can sell, give, or to anyone they want as long as they believe that person is not prohibited from having that gun.
Correct.
Okay. Now let's talk about a handgun, a 9mm Glock gun. What are the rules in reference to how a person can obtain a handgun in Pennsylvania?
So those, you can buy one from an FFL. You can have one gifted to you in a familial transaction. Now those are kind of limited. It's not your entire family. Think of it in a vertical fashion. So grandparent to grandchild, parent to child. The only horizontal manner it can go would be spouse to spouse.
And when they obtain that gun, a handgun, through a familial line, there's no kind of forms or anything to be filled out for that?
Right. You could just give it to the person. Now, if I had a handgun that you wanted, we would have to go to a dealer to transfer it.
Okay. So if you're not in the family line, you either go to a place to buy a gun at a store,
a licensee, yeah.
Or if I had a handgun and I wanted to sell it to you, I would have to take you to a store where you would have to fill out the forms.
Correct. And so just back to the familial relationship real quick, what you can't do is like brother to brother, brother to the sister, or anything like that. Uncle to nephew, no good.
Got it. Okay. Well, thank you, Adam. This has been amazing. A lot of interesting information here to break down for the viewers. I think what you take from this, for the most part, is believe it or not, in Pennsylvania, if you're convicted of a misdemeanor in first degree or higher, you're not allowed to own firearms. I also think it's important to understand also how a person can go about legally purchasing a firearm, having to fill out those forms or different ways. With a long gun, no form has to be filled out if a person believes the person is not illegally obtaining that gun. And then there's also some rules with handguns for the most part from family members down the line. Very interesting stuff. We're going to post the contact information for Adam. So, you know, he does very good work in reference to defending gun rights here in the United States. And he's part of that foundation. His contact information will be present there. He's also written some good articles that I came across. That's how I was able to find Adam. And we appreciate you being a guest here on 3 Minute Lawyer.
My pleasure.
Thank you. What were you saying now?
So when we were talking about prohibiting offenses like the misdemeanor, the first degree, and the felonies that prohibit people, there are mechanisms in which people can restore their rights.
So they can still get their gun rights back.
Yeah, so they're neither fast, cheap, nor easy. So the first option would be a pardon, seeking a
governor's pardon.
Yeah, it's usually like a 4 or 5 year process, no guarantee, and
Right.
you know, costs are associated with that. If you're convicted of an offense that's a state law crime that's prohibiting under state law and only state law,
Only state law, not federal law.
Yeah, and that's pretty rare, honestly. Like I'd have to go look at the code to tell you like this offense qualifies for that. But there are mechanisms you can obtain relief through the courts and the state system, but it's only under state law. It doesn't deal with the federal stuff.
But you can still be illegal in the federal.
Oh,
it's not illegal in the feds, but just a minute.
Yeah, if it's only prohibiting under state law and it's not captured somewhere in federal law, you can get relief by petitioning the state court. So in 6105, there's provisions about that. And then there's Second Amendment as applied challenges in the federal court system where you walk into court, you're basically saying like, look, this prohibition as applied to me is unconstitutional. So in the Third Circuit, where Pennsylvania is, the seminal case on it was Binder versus the Attorney General. There were 2 plaintiffs in that. One was convicted of corruption of a minor. The other, I think it was, I can't remember if it was carrying a firearm without a license or if it was a DUI offense. I think it was carrying a firearm without a license. They petitioned the court for relief from those and ultimately won. When I was practicing law full-time, we did one for an individual who was convicted of forging a window tint exemption, which was a misdemeanor of the first degree here in Pennsylvania. So that one we won at the trial court and the government didn't appeal it.
Federal court?
Yeah, in federal court. And then there were 2 others. There was Holloway, which we ended up losing at the Third Circuit. He was convicted of a DUI at the highest rate, so a misdemeanor of the first degree.
Misdemeanor first degree.
There was
because that's probably the most common M1 that I see all the time is second DUI.
Yeah, and most people have no idea.
For the rest of their lives, they're not allowed to have a firearm?
Yeah, and most people have no idea because when you plead, especially if you plead guilty, like they don't tell you that during the colloquy that you're giving up your firearms rights.
It's not mentioned anywhere.
Right, so you need a lawyer who understands this stuff.
Right.
Williams.
Or it should be part of the colloquy, but it's not.
Yeah. Williams, which was almost the same exact facts as Holloway.
Which was on DUI?
Yeah, Holloway was granted work release. Williams was under house arrest, but same thing. Like no other issues other than that one M1. And then there was a case.
And they lost?
And
so they got 2 DUIs and never gonna have a firearm the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Or a long gun.
Yeah, and so the court, in its opinion, expanded on the test that was in Binder up and added this element of dangerousness to it, which really like kind of now just opens the gateway for them to go like, well, you're dangerous and we're done here, nothing left to see. And then there was another interesting one that we lost that was a federal felony. An individual was convicted of making a false statement on their tax return.
And that was a misdemeanor?
No, that was a federal felony, and that one the Supreme Court declined a cert petition on that recently. That and Holloway as well. So
Holloway was not picked up by Supreme Court. So someone with 2 DUIs is basically screwed.
For right now, yeah, short of a pardon.
Short of a pardon.
And then what we didn't talk about at all was the mental health, the involuntary commitment. So now you can get relief from those if a court in Pennsylvania grants you relief. It didn't used to be that
For
way.
mental health, like a 302?
Yeah, for a 302. If you're 303 or 304, you're probably not going anywhere. But
Because 302 is the one where it's temporary, right?
Yeah, and there's no
303.
due process. They just
Right.
somebody may look at you, sign a paper, and now you're
But 303, 304,
you're put in front of a arbiter of some kind that's allegedly
And they said you
neutral,
need to stay.
And they said you need to stay. Yeah. So 302s you can now get relief through petitioning the courts, and ATF has said like good enough for us. If you get that relief, we'll pull you out of the system. So good news for people that were 302s anyway.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff.
I need 10 3-minute lawyer sessions for this. All right? I mean, I appreciate it.
Yeah.